5 NFL franchises are facing unprecedented stadium crises totaling over $12 billion in potential construction projects, with teams from Cleveland to Denver battling aviation permits, legislative roadblocks, and taxpayer opposition that could reshape the league's facility landscape. Welcome to Big Builds. The most dramatic crisis is unfolding in Cleveland, where the Browns' $2.4 billion dome stadium project in Brook Park has hit a massive aviation roadblock. On August 1st, 2025, the Ohio Department of Transportation's Office of Aviation denied the team's construction permit, stating that the proposed stadium would be an obstruction to air navigation at nearby Cleveland Hopkins International Airport. The denial came as a shock to the Haslam Sports Group, who had spent over a year working with Federal Aviation Administration consultants and believed they had cleared all regulatory hurdles. The technical details reveal the severity of the problem. ODOT determined that the proposed Brook Park Dome is 58 feet over the allowable height limit and would need to be no more than 163 feet tall to receive approval. This isn't a minor adjustment. Reducing the stadium height by nearly 60 feet would require fundamental design changes that could compromise the venue's functionality and aesthetic appeal. Behind the aviation permit denial lies a deeper political battle. Letters obtained by local media reveal that Director of Port Control Bryant Francis had been actively opposing the stadium proposal since March 2025, writing to both ODOT and the FAA that the project would permanently and negatively impact airport operations and safety. Francis specifically raised concerns about the stadium's height, impacting the airport's approach surfaces and navigable airspace. The controversy deepens when examining the broader context of Cleveland's stadium politics. The city filed a lawsuit in January 2025, using the model law to prevent the Browns from leaving downtown Cleveland. This law, passed in 1996 after Art Modell moved the original Browns to Baltimore, requires professional sports teams using state funding to provide advance notice before relocating, and gives residents a chance to buy the team or find a new buyer. However, Ohio Governor Mike DeWine signed a budget in July 2025 that includes $600 million in public funding for the Browns' new stadium while simultaneously modifying the model law, so it only applies to teams moving out of Ohio entirely. This legislative maneuvering effectively neutralizes Cleveland's legal challenge while providing the Browns with unprecedented public support for a suburban stadium. Dr. Robert Baudet, a sports economist at Lake Forest College who has analyzed stadium financing for over 30 years, describes Cleveland's situation as a perfect storm of regulatory, political, and financial challenges. Bod notes that the Browns' crisis illustrates how modern stadium projects must navigate increasingly complex approval processes that extend far beyond traditional financing negotiations. The second major crisis involves the Denver Broncos, whose lease at Empower Field at Mile High expires in 2030. During recent NFL owners' meetings, Broncos owner Greg Penner publicly confirmed that the organization is carefully evaluating all options as part of a comprehensive and long-term process. Penner revealed that potential locations include downtown Denver, the current stadium site, Aurora, and even Lone Tree, marking the first time the franchise has seriously considered multiple suburban locations. The Broncos' situation reflects the unique challenges facing NFL teams with aging facilities in expensive metropolitan markets. Empower Field opened in 2001, making it 24 years old when the lease expires. While the Walton Penner ownership group has invested over $100 million in recent upgrades, team president Damani Leach acknowledges that fundamental infrastructure improvements would require massive additional investment. "Our lease ends in 2030, and that's certainly a mile marker we're taking into account," Leach explained during training camp. A skydiver, a Broncos parachute, drops into Broncos Empower Field at Mile High before a preseason game on Saturday, August 16, 2025. That being said, in 5 more years, our lease will be up, and it'll be a 30-year-old stadium. On a macro level, you look around the league at what's happening. Stadiums built in that era, some younger, are either being built new or taking on significant renovations. The third crisis involves the Carolina Panthers, whose $800 million Bank of America stadium renovation has been branded the worst economic development deal of 2024 by the Center for Economic Accountability. Despite Charlotte City Council's approval of a plan requiring $650 million in public funding, the project faces ongoing controversy and implementation challenges. The watchdog group's criticism centers on the deal's structure, which requires billionaire owner David Tepper to contribute only $150 million up front, while taxpayers fund the majority of renovations for a team that won just 5 games in 2024. The Center for Economic Accountability's president, John Mazzina, dismissed claims about economic benefits, arguing that stadiums simply move local entertainment dollars around rather than generating new economic activity. Councilwoman Tijuana Brown's opposition during the approval process highlighted community concerns about transparency and Tepper's track record. "It sounds real good until we get Mr. Tepper angry, and then he might throw something at the city council," Brown said, referencing Tepper's incident of throwing a drink on a fan during an away game. The behavior of someone asking for $650 million is ridiculous. The fourth crisis involves the Chicago Bears, whose multi-year stadium odyssey continues to face legislative and financial roadblocks. Despite CEO Kevin Warren confirming that Arlington Heights is the plan, the franchise needs Illinois General Assembly approval for property tax relief legislation to make the project financially viable. The team hopes lawmakers will act in October 2025 to approve tax breaks that would allow groundbreaking this year on a $5 billion domed stadium and entertainment complex. The Bears' situation illustrates how NFL stadium projects have become increasingly dependent on state-level political negotiations. The franchise purchased the 326-acre Arlington Heights property for $197.2 million in February 2023. But property tax assessments and local government cooperation remain unresolved. Governor J.B. Pritzker and top legislative leaders have repeatedly declared that direct state subsidies for the stadium are off the table, forcing the Bears to pursue creative financing mechanisms through tax increment financing and property tax abatements. This represents a significant shift from traditional stadium financing models, where direct public contributions often exceed 50% of total project costs. The fifth crisis involves the Arizona Cardinals, whose State Farm Stadium is approaching 20 years of operation and beginning to show its age compared to newer NFL venues. While not facing immediate crisis like other teams, Cardinals ownership is quietly evaluating long-term facility options as the venue approaches the typical NFL stadium lifespan of 25 to 30 years. The Cardinals' situation reflects a broader challenge facing NFL franchises with facilities built during the early 2000s construction boom. State Farm Stadium opened in 2006 with innovative features including a retractable roof and movable grass-playing surface. But 18 years of operation have created maintenance challenges and technological obsolescence compared to venues like SoFi Stadium and Allegiant Stadium. Industry observers note that the Cardinals face unique market pressures in the Phoenix metropolitan area, where rapid population growth creates opportunities for facility expansion, but also intensifies competition for entertainment dollars. The franchise must balance facility upgrade costs against other priorities, including player payroll and market expansion initiatives. The broader economic context surrounding these 5 crises reflects fundamental changes in NFL stadium financing and public policy. Traditional models relied heavily on municipal bonds backed by taxpayer guarantees, but growing public resistance to sports subsidies has forced franchises to pursue increasingly creative financing mechanisms. Dr. Andrew Zimbalist, a sports economist at Smith College who has studied stadium financing for over 3 decades, describes the current environment as the most challenging period for stadium development in NFL history. Zimbalist notes that the combination of construction cost inflation, regulatory complexity, and reduced public appetite for sports subsidies creates unprecedented obstacles for franchise facility planning. Construction cost inflation represents a particularly acute challenge for all 5 franchises. Industry data indicates that stadium construction costs have increased by approximately 40% since 2020, driven by material cost inflation, labor shortages, and increasingly complex regulatory requirements. This inflation affects every aspect of stadium development, from basic structural work to specialized systems like retractable roofs and advanced audio-visual installations. Labor market constraints compound these cost pressures, as the specialized skills required for modern stadium construction face supply limitations. The simultaneous pursuit of multiple major projects creates competition for experienced construction managers, architects specializing in sports venues, and workers skilled in advanced building systems. This competition drives up labor costs and extends project timelines, adding additional financial pressure to already strained budgets. Regulatory complexity has expanded significantly beyond traditional building codes and zoning requirements. Modern stadium projects must navigate environmental impact assessments, aviation safety regulations, traffic impact studies, and increasingly sophisticated historic preservation requirements. The Cleveland Browns aviation permit denial illustrates how regulatory oversight can halt even well-funded projects with strong political support. The political dynamics surrounding stadium financing have shifted dramatically over the past decade. Elected officials face growing voter resistance to public stadium subsidies, particularly in markets where schools, infrastructure, and other public services face budget constraints. This political pressure forces franchises to pursue higher levels of private financing while accepting reduced public contributions compared to historical precedents. The resolution of these 5 simultaneous crises will likely establish new templates for NFL stadium development over the next decade. Successful projects will demonstrate viable approaches to regulatory challenges, financing innovation, and public-private partnerships, while failures could create cautionary examples that influence future negotiations. The interdependence of these crises creates additional complexity, as the success or failure of one project influences public and political attitudes toward others. A successful resolution of the Cleveland Browns aviation challenges could encourage other franchises to pursue suburban locations near airports, while regulatory failures could strengthen arguments for downtown stadium locations with fewer aviation constraints. Media coverage and public attention to these stadium battles increasingly influences their outcomes, as social media and digital journalism provide platforms for both supporters and opponents to mobilize public opinion. The Carolina Panthers' designation as the worst economic development deal illustrates how national watchdog groups can affect local political dynamics around stadium financing. The timing of these decisions coincides with broader changes in sports consumption patterns and facility expectations. Younger fans increasingly value technological connectivity, premium amenities, and diverse entertainment options beyond traditional game experiences. These evolving expectations influence stadium design requirements and financing models, as franchises must balance traditional fan loyalty with attraction of new demographics. The Cleveland Browns, Denver Broncos, Carolina Panthers, Chicago Bears, and Arizona Cardinals represent over $12 billion in potential stadium projects, facing regulatory, financial, and political obstacles that could determine the future of NFL facility development. Big Builds will continue tracking these complex negotiations as they develop over the coming months, examining how each franchise navigates the unprecedented challenges facing modern stadium development. For more in-depth analysis of NFL stadium crises and their broader implications, subscribe and ring the notification bell.